Hello everybody, my name is Garrett and we're here to go over utilizing AQL for incident response. In this example, I have an example offense in my environment. It's for a rule I created for Tor traffic from the emerging threats Tor list. In this case, this source IP is on the list in a reference set. So anytime any communication is seen to this IP that's in the reference set, either inbound or outbound, it'll fire an offense. And in this case, it was to our destination IP inbound to teapot, which is the honeypot that I have in the environment. So the first step, before we get into the actual AQL, we need to know like what type of fields are being parsed in, like what do we have to search on other than the IPs, obviously. So we know it's port 22, so that'll be interesting. We have the IP address, a couple snort events, and a firewall permit. So there's not a whole lot of extra stuff we have here, which is to be expected for this type of traffic. We got a signature name, which is the event name, and not a whole lot else parsed. Okay, so we'll set this off to the side for now, and let's just start by doing the source IP. So in this page here, I still have the example query from before with a couple tweaks, which we'll go over. But first, we're going to do source IP equals this, or the destination IP equals this. The reason for both is we want to look for bidirectional traffic. So did they talk inbound and did they talk outbound? So what I had before was username, source IP, the port, like that's all the direction I added in there. We have the time of actual QRadar and the time of the log source. We have the event name or QID. We have the standard QID because we'll search on that sometimes. The log source name, and I do that as the log source time. Or, whoops, my bad. Log source name, and that stays the same. Category, so I wanted the high level category because it's kind of good to search on this sometimes, and we'll show that in a sec. The low level category and the event count. And for now, we're going to sort this by, we'll just do like source IP, I guess, over the last 24 hours. Oh, whoops. Actually, let's go look at the time this occurred. So it occurred on the 25th, so we're going to have to go more than that. So let's do 48. So we have 5 events. They're all from the source IP this. So what that indicates is no outbound traffic was seen to this IP. It's only inbound. And it's for a couple exploit events. So now let's group it by QID, so we get the event names. And these are all the same as what we saw in the previous offense tab. And they all happen at the same time. So we know no outbound traffic was observed. It's only inbound. What we can do is let's go look at that device. The one that triggered or that they were going to. Let's look outbound. So you can see this device, we have a lot of outbound traffic. Two different domains it looks like. This is OpenDNS, RDP connections outbound. Or actually, it looks inbound. It's just, this is response, it looks like. More DNS, but this is internal DNS, so that's fine. But what's interesting, so this is on the same local network as this. Let's look if there's any communication from this to the internal network during that time frame. So to do that, let's do event direction is equal to local. Oh, and to actually see all the events because they're all just firewall permits. Let's do it by destination IP in this case. So this is good to know that it's only talking to the DNS server. No other devices were accessed during that time, so that's a good step. So now let's, so we kind of know what's going on with the device, both the source and the dest. One other thing that we could look at, since we don't have a signature parse because it's not like a layer 7 firewall, let's look how many times this rule is triggered in the last 48 hours and like to what IPs and what devices. So there's a couple ways to go about that with AQL, because normally in like a normal search, let me copy that just to make sure we don't lose it. I guess we do a new search. In a normal search, you could do a filter for custom rule and then do the name of your rule. In AQL, it's a little different. So let's go back here. And what we're going to want to do first is we want to do where the rule and then name. So that's a function. And we're going to call CRE event list as the field. And then we'll equal, and then our rule name in this case. And our rule name, let's go back. Display rules. And while we're here, I'll actually just pop the rule up for you. So that's our rule name, basically non-local to local, where any IP is contained in this reference set. Pretty basic rule. So now we'll go back here, paste that. Oh, whoops, I removed the group by. Let's do source IP, since that's what we saw last time. So this looks like the only time this fired in the last 48 hours was from this IP. So let's expand this, because I know that's not the case. It's like fired more times. Let's make it the last 7 days. Shouldn't take too long for this. Interesting. So this is still the only. There we go. I get a lot more traffic now. So you can see a bunch of Tor hits were on the 19th, and it looks like they kind of just stopped, which is that's kind of interesting. But a lot of inbound Tor traffic, and it's almost all over port 22. And the only outbound we can see is from this guy, which is also contained. That's a Docker container on that honeypot, which is to this IP. Which, let me look. That looks very similar to what we just saw. So this guy's hit us more than once, it looks like. And there was outbound traffic, but it was denied. So that's good. So that's one way to search it on the rule name. Another option, what if I've seen it sometimes the rule, like it doesn't want to search for whatever reason. So we can take away the function, and there's this cool little trick I found out. So we have the rule name here. Whoops. Let's go back here. Let's find the rule. See if I can get it to load up here. It doesn't look like it's going. Oops. Let's just search it. Oh, it's because this is Google Chrome. Let's see if we can find it a different way. We will copy this back. So what this does, this is basically a rule ID, and that's what we're trying to find. So to try and find that, let's try and group this last like 1 day. And let's do this in our columns. Whoops, 2 days, my bad. Whoops. Okay, so let's find port scan activity, so that's good. We need to add one more column to get the actual rule ID. Okay, in this case, the rule ID is 10062. Normally, when I'm not on my Mac, I do Firefox, but it has issues with QRadar for some reason. And you're able to highlight over this, and then down in this corner right here, similar to how this shows up, you can see what the rule ID is without actually trying to find it. So that's a good tip to know. I'm not sure, depending on the browsers on all of Windows, but I know I use Firefox on Windows, and I can see the rule ID when it's down here. So in this case, let's change this to rule ID. I want to group it by that. We want source IP. And before I go on, let me explain this here. So the reason why, even though I'm grouping it on the event list, and I'm only specifying that one list, it'll get multiple matches depending on all the rules that match this offense for the building blocks. So building blocks, rules, all that kind of stuff. So even if it's like partial offense matches or full matches, it'll list them all here. So for like debugging rules and creating them, this is very handy to know all the matches. And you can also see this, we'll pull up the other window real quick. You can also see this down here for custom rules and like the matches and partial matches. So this is good to know if your rule is working or to debug it. So click enter. And I still left these columns up here, so we can take those out. And we're searching on only that rule. So then if we expand this back to our 14-day window, we got all the traffic. So one other thing, now that we've kind of investigated that, I want to close this out. We'll change this to known traffic to honeypot. So now we can close that one out. One other cool little trick that we can do here is, we'll just do it this way. So say we're like investigating something and I want to look at, so say the last one I had a username. Maybe they tried to RDP and I have a username of it. But sometimes with Windows, depending on if it's like a domain user, so like if I had a domain like example / the username, you might not, or it might parse in the example / username or just the username depending on how like the DSMs and everything's done in the back end. So to avoid like not knowing which one, we can do something like this. So username is like, which that's basically contains, and the I for like is like, for I like, that's case insensitive. So if we did just like, the casing of the username, it would have to match exactly that, versus with I like, it can match any of it. And let's say we don't want to match that username. You can just add a not I like or a not like. So that's very handy. So for our example, we're going to do like, and then, so we could do this, but to really like effectively use the contains function, we do need to have %signs on either side of what we're trying to search for. So I know this username's in the environment multiple times, and you can see right here, nothing shows up for like a / like example for the domain or something like that. But, and it's all lowercase, even though we did uppercase, it's still searched just fine. And that'll pull our events. Thanks for watching the second video, and hopefully I answered all your questions. If you guys have any other questions or want to see some examples with AQL, just let me know. Have a great day.